Alright, hello all you crazy people out there, my name is Dragonite and welcome back to Harvest December. So this is a visual novel that I played the demo of a couple weeks, months, whatever's ago, and I was mildly interested in it when I did it, but when I was editing it, if not like I fell in love with it, I certainly wanted to know more about the characters and what was going to happen and everything, so I bought the full version and I'm going to be reading it now. Harvest December, let's go! Let's see. Again, this is a visual novel. This isn't the game, which, if you're not into that kind of thing, you may want to skip the series. But if you're interested in an interesting ride, whatever that means. Anyway, let's go. Pretend I didn't say anything stupid. So, let's see. Everything changes no matter how you wish otherwise. Sniff. Things that are disappear. Things that are disappear. Okay. From nothing comes something. Things change for better or for worse. You can say that again. A child stood alone in the mountains crying. The branches of the surrounding trees sagged from the weight of the snow piled, occasionally dropping small clumps onto the ground. The child kept crying. His tears dropped by his feet in a quiet rain. Todo-sama! He took a step forward. The snow around him disappeared, leaving the ground bare. Magic! He wiped his cheek with the sleeve of his kimono, but no matter how many times he did so, fresh tears wet his face. And I realized this very late, but you can actually tap the green words, and you'll see like a glossary entry of what they mean. Usually they seem to be for like Japanese words that don't apparently have an English translation, but you can do that if you want to know more about like Japan and stuff. Cool. Let's see, where was I? Kakasama. He began to walk slowly, taking small steps, the sound of his feet breaking the silence of the forest. He could hear the faint howls of the wolves far away. They were looking for food which was scarce in the winter mountains. Nene-sama, Madoi's here. Madoi. Oh no, we're like 2 minutes into this recording and I'm already having problems with names. He didn't remember when the tears started. It was such a long time ago. Each time he took a step, the snow around his feet would disappear, making a trail of round, dark patches on the land as if a small string of meteors had fallen behind him. How poetic. There was snow. Changing its existence caused it to dissolve. What is became what was. Oh, what is became what was. Alright, got it. Then empty space would be filled with substance. That was the power he had, being the offspring of a god. Madoi did not know when he had received these powers. Probably when he was born, because that's how those things usually work. There was Todo-sama, Kage-sama, and Nene-sama before, but now, he was the only one left, a lonely child in the mountains. A lonely child in the mountains. He had been alone for 100 years. That's a pretty long time. Sniff, sniff. He headed down the sloping path. It was not much of a path. On the rare occasion, a hunter would make his way deep into the mountains, but most of the tracks Madoi walked on were made by wild animals. Madoi followed them, knowing they would take him where he wanted to go. It came instinctively to him, being the child of the god of these lands, being the child god of these lands. Okay? I don't want to be alone, he sobbed. He stopped, arriving at his destination. He had reached an area with a flat surface, unlike the slopes he had been walking on so far. Finally, his tears began to dry. The last tear rolled down his chin and dropped by his feet. He was standing on a square platform built of stone. He knew he had to keep moving forward. With a determined breath, he took a step. Todo-sama, this year I will keep my promise. Most of the blood relations were long gone, but he still had his duties as a child god. He took another step forward, then another. Between the large slabs of stone, there were small pebbles, smooth and round like marbles. They had a life of their own, like spirits beyond the land, bound to the land. Beyond, bound. Reading is hard. My eyesight isn't that good. Plenty of excuses. Yeah. They were sacred. They were part of the Yaorozu. I feel like that should have like green highlight on it that I can tap with the stylus. Anyway, the idea of Yaorozu was that where there was life and where there was nature, there was a god in every single form of the earth. That's a concept that we're familiar with from the first chapter of Harvest December, I think. These stones on the ground were no exception, and therefore they contained power. But Madoi did not understand these things, being a child. A 100-year-old child, nonetheless. With each step he took, the pebbles rattled, clashing together to mimic the sound of crystalline bells. Bell sound effects. They were the instruments of gods. The stones lay close but loose. Lying in their natural state, they moved and shifted under his weight. Every movement he made traveled through the slabs to the pebbles, causing a tremor through the land. Like 5 minutes into this recording and I need water already. Excellent. Alright, moving on. They would shake and collide with each other, ringing out. Shimmering, tinkling. Kakasama by Sakashima's name. I will make it this year. The entire platform was vibrating now. The sound of the bells rang out continuously. The snow did nothing to absorb the sound. A long string of pebbles stretched out before him. A human might have thought it looked like a white line on a running track. But it marked a boundary. It was a line that divided the land of Shakashima and the land of Tagami. Tochigami. Glossary? Oh, so that's a god. Alright, so a god only had its full power when he stood on the ground he ruled. It was taboo to enter another god's territory. Should he trespass, he could easily become food to feed to the wolves, hungry and waiting on the other side. I assume hungry and waiting on the other side is describing the wolves, not the kid. That was the rule amongst the gods. However, ! Midori took one step over the border. The entire ground shook. And with that, the sound of 1,000,000 bells burst from the ground. Thank you, sound effects. Turn back. You do not belong here. Midori almost froze in fear. ! Midori, the sound of bells are often used in rituals for purification, but when there are intruders, they act as a warning, too. Midori remembered what his father had taught him. Everything had turned. Midori shut his eyes tight. He knew. In the next moment, he could have his throat ripped out by the wolves that served the god of Tagami. I'm gonna try to remember that that's literally just like a god in Japanese, or in this dialect, or whatever. A god out of his land was next to powerless against the reigning god. Even so, Midori covered his ears and ran. He ran further and farther away from the border, the bells still ringing behind his back, reminding him he had done something wrong. He was afraid, but he ran. He had a promise to keep, a promise long due for 100 years. The sound of the bells diminished as he ran down the mountain at full speed, each step bringing him more relief. Instead, from the bottom of the mountain, he began to hear faint music of traditional flute and drums. He knew it was what humans called a recording. He had to leave the mountains as soon as possible. If he stayed any longer, these starving beasts with sharp yellow teeth were sure to come get him. Faster, faster! He felt tears welling up as he ran. Now, each step he took did not dissolve the snow entirely. His powers were weak here. He was scared. He felt so alone. He could hear the music clearly now. Down below there was a shrine where people were paying their respects, celebrating the beginning of the new year. They prayed and made new resolutions, hopeful they would come true. And I'm gonna try and look at my 3DS instead of the computer screen to read because it's a little closer to my face. After all, even if everything had turned out otherwise, what harm was there in making a wish? Anyway, boundaries in January. I've been recording for about 12 minutes now, maybe a little bit less than that. Got at the shrine. And this hasn't been the longest video. I know I said 15 minutes a couple seconds ago, but I'm going to end this off here. So, I hope that got you as interested as it got me. My name is Dragonite, and I will see you all later.